Hey guys, Michael Luzier, 04 Property Group here in Henderson. Jump on here today and share the word of the day, intermediary. What is it? What does it mean? When is it used? We've got some deals here in the office. I'm fortunate to have several agents that are working together on some transactions, and intermediary has come up. Right. So when we talk about intermediary, the first thing we have to answer is, are we truly in an intermediary relationship? I have the seller. We have a buyer that we're working with, but we don't have a buyer representation agreement, so we're working with them as a customer only. That will not be an intermediary relationship. And vice versa. If we have a registration of broker and owner, we're representing the buyer. Again, that is an unrepresented side. That's another form, another lesson. But if we are going to be using intermediary, what does it mean? What forms do we use? And how do we fill those out? So, Trek has a approved form that we want to use on the intermediary relationship notice. So, what intermediary is it allows a broker to work with both the buyer and the seller in a transaction. We have a listing agreement with the seller. We have a buyer representation form filled out with and signed by the buyer. So the broker can operate as what they call an intermediary. The broker has to do this. As a sales agent, we can't, but the broker can. So, what does intermediary mean? Right? We have some requirements functioning as an intermediary. Right? The We can't favor one side over the other. We can't share confidential information between the two. We can't advise one party in a way that harms the other. So it's an arm length transaction. We lose, your seller or your buyer can lose some of the benefit of working with an agent in an intermediary relationship, right? What is confidential information, right? The lowest price the seller will take, the highest price the buyer will pay, motivation, urgency, right? They need to get out, they've got to sell, they want to move quick. And we can't really even advise on any negotiating strategies. So filling out the form and the type of intermediary relationship that you enter into can affect the transaction. So this form here, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but there's a whole lot of meaning into it, right? This does not satisfy the written consent requirement under Texas law. This form by itself does not allow you to function as an intermediary. You have to have permission in the buyer representation agreement. It has a spot to fill out both the long form and the short form to get them to agree to allow us to function that way. And then in the listing agreement, it also has a spot that they check. We go through it with them, we explain it to them, we get a signature. So you have to have permission on those two forms to be able to go into this. But if you do have that, this form is what explains what type of relationship we're going to enter. There's two different kinds. But starting out, this form, very beginning, two, this is where the seller's information will go. One seller, two sellers, however many you have, and then your buyers. All right. From this will be your brokerage for our broker's address, and then the current date, the same date that you're getting this signed. You're going to have to get this signed the same time you get the rest of your paperwork done. All right, under this notice, owner means the seller or landlord of the property, and prospect means the above named prospective buyer or tenant. Um, B says brokerage firm represents the owner under a listing agreement and also represents the prospect under a buyer tenant representation agreement. Again, to clarify, you have to have both signed. You have to have the listing agreement signed by the seller, the buyer rep agreement signed by the buyer, or you're not entering into a intermediary relationship. At that point, you have one unrepresented side of the transaction. But then you get down to D, and this is where the conversation really spins up when it comes to intermediary. Right? You have two options: broker will or will not appoint licensed associates to communicate with, carry out instructions of, and provide opinion and advice during negotiations to each party. If they make such appointments, broker appoints, and then you have two blanks. So the broker can function as an intermediary without appointments. At that point, both the buyer and the seller, they're represented, but we cannot advise. Right? We can give factual information, we can answer factual questions, but we cannot give advice or opinions to either party. It doesn't even matter who we signed first. If we had the listing signed and then brought the buyer on, we have to be impartial to both. We cannot show favor. So, with no appointments, you're a paper pusher. Um, really caution you to function slowly and methodically. If you are in a intermediary relationship notice without appointments. The other option is will appoint licensed associates. As a broker, the broker can take and assign an agent to both sides of the transaction. He or she can appoint one agent to represent the owner. At that point, that agent can advise. That agent can give opinions, just like in a regular transaction, what we're used to. And the same can happen on the buyer side. He can pick another agent in the office. They can be appointed to the buyer side, and negotiations go on like normal. The broker has to stay impartial. The broker um, cannot use what she knows, to assist either side in an unfair way. A broker cannot be appointed to a side. So, as a broker, my listing, one of my agents brings a buyer into to the office for my property. I either have to do no appointments or I have to appoint another agent to the seller side. I cannot represent the seller and have one of my agents represent the buyer. It's impartial, it's unfair. So if there's going to be appointments, it has to be two different licensed salespeople inside the same firm, and the broker will act as intermediary. Um, this is what we see the majority of the time. It's just it's CYA. It's protecting yourself. It's protecting your brokerage, but it's protecting your clients. It doesn't matter seller buyer. We want to be fair and impartial, and we want to give them the best experience that we possibly can. And to do that, they need representation. So a broker is the only one that can act as intermediary without appointments. The broker is representing both sides. No advice, no opinions can be given. With appointments, you appoint two different salespeople. Broker cannot be appointed to one side. And this form has to be filled out, provided to both the sellers and the prospects, everybody's signature, to enter into an intermediary relationship notice. So, hope that answers some questions. If you have more, grab your broker, grab your supervisor, dig into it, and make sure you understand it before you have these conversations with your client and enter into this relationship. If you enjoyed this video and would like to learn more about the real estate industry, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.